All right. I'll mute myself here in a second. Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to another PWA Studio Community Sync. We have some pretty light content here, some good content here on our side that we kind of previewed in the Slack channel earlier. So rather than me wasting time talking, we'll just get right into it. Catherine, if you want to start us off first with the research into my account, that would be fantastic.
Sure thing. Let me get that share set up. Okay, can everybody see the keynote in full screen mode?
Yep.
Cool. All right. So, as Andrew said, we've got our second share out for some of the design research we've been doing for Vinia, and this one focuses on my account. So I think, we did this last time. You all know Soumya and Scott. For anybody who wasn't here then, I'm Catherine. I'm a researcher here at Magento, and I've been helping them out doing some of this design research. So in this round, our goal was, again, to look into my account, and we wanted to understand when folks accessed account, why, and how they
Hey, Catherine.
accessed.
Cat,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're just in the slides. We're just kind of stuck on the first slide. We can see over in the side those. I don't think it's in presentation mode. So, but there we go.
Yeah, this is an intermittent bug with Keynote that we've discussed quite a bit. I'll just present from this view then. Can you all see the goal slide now?
Yeah. Thanks.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thanks for telling me, Scott. And so then we are also hoping to identify the primary use cases for accounts, like what kinds of actions were really crucial. And then finally, we wanted to take a look at, there's many account capabilities in Luma. We wanted to understand which of that kind of palette of possible actions were most important for shopper experience and which may be optional for some merchants. So what we did, this was, again, interviews with internal participants. So these are Magento employees, so all of the usual caveats with that. They are shoppers and are totally capable of speaking to the shopper experience, but may be a little more web savvy and demographically a little more constricted, not super young, not super old. So just some things to bear in mind when thinking through the findings. And with them, we did tour guide interviews. So we wanted to hear about how people interacted with their real accounts that they actually use in their lives. So we asked folks to think about a website that they shop on frequently, where they have an account that was not Amazon, and to tour us around in it, to show us what that account had. And that way we could see, what did they use frequently? What were they aware of? What was surprising to them when they actually took a closer look at account? And from that, gauge their real behavior interacting with an account. So I'll get into the findings and we'll kind of move through chronologically through the account experience. So starting with account creation. And what we heard here was that, folks typically create an account if they thought they were going to shop at that store again. That was the primary thing they considered when making that decision. But they could be incentivized by sign-up offers. So getting a discount on the order was motivating if that order was a high enough dollar amount. But the other thing we heard was that, these are two very concrete things folks considered when deciding whether to create an account. But there was a lot of kind of X factors at play as well. They would say, I just I don't even know how I decide. Am I busy? Do I feel like it? So there is some kind of give and play here in whether folks decide to create an account. And so from that, you can take that it's something that can be encouraged via design. So it's not purely a rational decision. The second thing we heard was that in terms of what motivated people to create an account, what benefits they saw from it, by far the biggest one was faster checkout. And then the second really important one was order history. And so, did they think that they were going to be checking out a bunch of times at the store, or did they think they were going to have to go back and look at an item or create a return? So once an account was created, we found that didn't totally get rid of the annoyance that people would have with checkout because participants had a lot of trouble signing in. So again, we were asking people to show us accounts where they shop frequently. And what we found out was that even at these sites, participants had a lot of trouble remembering their password. Most had systems for remembering their passwords. They had them written down somewhere, or they had some sort of algorithm they used to generate passwords for different sites. but it was still a struggle. So because of that, participants typically did not sign in until they absolutely had to. And so this was checkout. And so this is important because it means that even for participants and presumably shoppers with an account, they may not be signed in during the shopping experience. They may not sign in until they're actually checking out. And so this obviously has some interesting implications for personalization. So getting into what people actually used in their account, what mattered most was order history. This was by far and away the biggest use case that people had for accessing their account. And this was typically to return an item, no surprise there, but also to find a particular item they had ordered in the past. And this was a little more surprising to us that that was such a common thing we heard about. Locating a particular item, wanting to see the details of it, potentially wanting to reorder it, was a frequent comment from participants. When it came to actually using their account, I show Uniqlo because this is one that we saw a couple of times in the research. It was a popular account, but it is not a good experience. It's missing several of these key features that made account usable. The first was product images. Being able to look through your order history and see the actual items you ordered made it much, much easier to locate whatever you were looking for. The second was the ability to click into PDP. Again, for participants wanting to locate that particular item, that was a really important feature, often missing for kind of obvious reasons. PDPs expire, they're not necessarily available anymore, but something that was desired. And then finally, we were really curious, how far back does this need to go? How like 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, forever? These are the things we wanted to hear about. And what we found was that 1 year was kind of the minimum. Order history really needs to show at least a year. And from several participants, we heard that they would like it to go back farther, either their whole order history or 2 years. So that was kind of the range we heard. And that gives us a good sense of what the minimum is. And then the final note here, so order history is the most commonly used place of account by far. But what we found was that most participants said that they would not access it by signing into their account and go into order history. They would actually access it via email. So they would find that order in their email, look at it, and then click through that to get to their order history or their shipping updates or whatever they want to look for. And so this was really useful because, this is a highly used area. And if email is kind of the gateway into this part of account, it definitely bumps up the importance of email and the email experience. So next we'll get into some of the less used parts of account. So here we have this category of things that participants definitely expected, but that were used less than order history. And so for payments and addresses, these are things that participants said, typically I would update these in checkout, but yes, it's important to me to be able to go and update it here if I get a new credit card and I just want to update it across all my sites, for example, where I've moved. For wish lists, this was less used. And again, this is one of those areas where thinking about who our participants were is really important, knowing that these aren't super young people and younger folks may have different uses for wish lists and they may use it more. But among people we spoke to, they didn't use wish lists that much. They had used them, but only for really high consideration items or for comparing items across different stores. So not using the store wish list functionality, but actually comparing items via a third-party app like Google Keep. And so that was kind of a new behavior to us as well. And then finally, gift cards and store credit. Participants expected to apply these and use these in checkout. That was the behavior that they really, expected to see, but they wanted something more. And that was to be able to access their gift cards, their store credits in their account, check it there, maybe be able to upload a gift card there, and be able to kind of monitor it that way and keep and hold on to these things that way. So that was a desired functionality, but not something they expected stores to offer. And then finally, we have these things that really did not seem to be used in the vast majority of use cases, and that was downloads, subscriptions, and reviews. So we had people show us through their account, right, and just show us everything that they used, everything they would maybe use. And then when we got to the end of that exercise, we typically still had not heard about any of these three things. So we would ask about them explicitly, and we would say, do you manage downloads or subscriptions in an account? Can you think of an example where you do that? Any sites? And many participants struggled to think of an example. And when they did, it was typically a download or subscription only site. So here I'm showing my ClassPass account where, subscription is the entire business model. And so we saw that these features were important, but only in these really kind of narrow use cases where that was the primary business model of the merchant. For standard e-commerce merchants, it seemed like these were not really expected or used, for the most part. The second was for reviews, and I think about a third of our participants, did write reviews or had written reviews frequently in the past, so they were review users. But of those people, none of them expected to be able to access the reviews in account. They expected to see them on the PDP, maybe be able to edit them on the PDP if that was a feature they were looking for, but not an account. So these were all things that seemed, potentially less important for the standard merchant use case out of the box. So that is it. Soumya and Scott are on the line to discuss any questions about any of this stuff. And, as usual, our usual call to action is if you have anything that you think it would be useful to look into, let us know. Some of the upcoming studies that we have slated to potentially tackle are product types and configuration, offline behavior and messages, and product detail page. So that's it. Thanks.
Awesome, thanks, Catherine. So any questions for Catherine or any commentary that Scott or Sami that you guys want to add?
No, I think Catherine covered everything.
I have nothing. Agreed. But if anyone has any questions, we're happy to answer them now or just reach out to us at any point. And we can add some more detail or anything to that. So thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, and it's just so
I have kind of
I was just going to say for the larger audience here, right? Keep in mind that my account is obviously the epic that we're going to work on following the checkout experience that is currently in progress. So still have some runway before we actually pick up that work and start development against my account. But we're obviously trying to determine the scope for the features that we want to deliver as a part of that epic, given the wealth of kind of functionality that exists within your typical Luma or Magento experience around my account. So here's the context there. James, you were going to say?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask Catherine and/or Scott whether there is a breakdown of the devices that people were using during these tests. I'm sure that goes into the decision making somewhat. I just wanted to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, we actually probably should have called that on the slide. It was 3 mobile and 6 desktop. And that was just breaking down by, we asked participants to shop on whatever device they normally used. And that's what we got.
Okay, so the device that they normally used, basically. And did you control it all for the type of device or the input methods or anything?
Yeah, we found that in terms of the findings we presented here, there weren't meaningful differences across devices. And that's why we didn't call any of those out. Yeah. I don't know if Soumya and Scott may have other things that stand out to them, though, but just at the very, very high level, the account functionality expectations seemed fairly uniform.
That's actually really interesting to me, especially considering that these are some of the most complex workflows that your kind of lay user goes through. And usually when you're trying to make a nice mobile experience and a nice desktop experience, you end up having to diverge in the input methods you're using somewhat. In the mobile device, there's more touch, and in the desktop, potentially you could use hover as an interaction. And so since you're diverging and there's like more ground to cover in terms of UX, like one or the other of them could end up being confusing or inferior to the other without realizing it. And even though it sounds like that didn't really show up here, I just want to generally understand, again, from you or Soumya or Scott, like when or if that shows up and how you account for it in studies like these.
I can speak to that a little bit, and I imagine Soumya and Scott might want to jump in. Oh.
Go ahead.
I'll go ahead. We weren't really looking at rating the quality of these experiences. So we weren't interested in does this store have a really good implementation? Does this store have a poor implementation? Is this mobile experience good? Is this desktop experience good? We weren't looking at it at that level. We were really looking at what kind of functionality is needed. And then some really, really just high level usability stuff. So kind of the most important things like, can I see the image of the item I'm looking for stood out? But I think the study wasn't looking at these experiences on that kind of more fine-grained usability level, because I think you're right, there would be really meaningful differences.
Okay, yeah, I guess I'm not really asking about quality so much as about any measurable difference in the tested variable, whether it's quality or confusion or whatever else. But okay, thank you. In the future, yeah, that's like one of the questions I'll always be asking when I look at results like this. So thank you.
All right. If there are no other questions, we will keep moving along the agenda. Uh, as a reminder, Catherine, Samia, Scott are all in this community Slack channel, so if you have feedback for them or have additional questions on some of the UX research that's happening right now, feel free to reach out. And we'll move on to Andy. I believe Andy's on the call. Yep.
Hi, I'm
Andy,
here.
looking at the new checkout work.
Sure. Let's take over. Okay, can you see the checkout page?
Oh,
Yeah.
Excellent.
yeah.
Okay, so this is some of the first work in the checkout epic that Andrew mentioned that we're in progress on. And I specifically worked on the shipping method. So I've got an item in my cart already. Shipping information, actually, we may have wanted Tommy to go first, but he's going to show that one next. So for now, I'm just going to skip over that one. And oh, you get this error message when you don't have any shipping information, because the methods are based on the address in your shipping information. Like I said, this is kind of like sequential, so you should probably never actually get into this state. But just in case you do, there's a little error message there for you. I can add some shipping information via our handy mini cart, our checkout experience of old, V1 checkout, if you will. So there's an address. It would be cool if this thing updated immediately. It doesn't. I have to refresh. And then based on the address that I put in there, I got, there'll be a whole list of shipping methods. I actually accidentally put in a fake address, so it just gives me like some mock data or whatever. But then you can go to payment information after that, and then these kind of cards show up when you're done, and you can come back in here and edit things. This isn't exactly the update screen. If you can see this other tab, this is what it'll end up looking like. But yeah, you can kind of come back in here, and the checkout page is a little rough right now. Like we said, it's in progress, and you know, not everything's done. So it's a little rough right now, but that's shipping methods for you.
Thanks, Andy. Any questions for Andy? Yeah, quick round golf clap, and then should have started with Tommy. Now I know, but now we have Tommy up next.
Awesome. The birds are going nuts, man. They loved it.
Yeah,
Oh, thanks.
working outside was maybe a bad idea.
Um,
Prob-
I've discovered that my Wi-Fi drops whenever my AC turns on, so I got like 2 minutes here. Everybody calm down. Everybody calm down. All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, as Andy mentioned, we are grinding away on the checkout experience. So I kind of wanted to show kind of how you maybe would get there. So this is the cart. Cart is inaccessible, but you can manually navigate there. Right now, I have one item in my cart. When you proceed to the checkout, you should see a screen like this. And Andy probably would have loved to see a screen like this to help with his demo, but both of these are not yet merged. So pretty simple. I mean, it's very similar to the mini cart checkout, except for we have a lot of additional fields that we want to display here. So kind of a highlight of this in the scope of this feature, there were two kind of components that came out of this. So we extracted country. So this is a drop-down with data sourced from Magento. So I mean the country drop-down on data. So if you update that in Magento, it'll update it in your PWA storefront. Also, the state region field is also completely dynamic. So you'll see if I don't know, go to the Ukraine. There are no regions in Magento for the Ukraine, so it turns to a select field. If I go to France, oui, Parlez-vous français? You'll see that the options change to regions in France. Our storefront is very American, so it still says state, but obviously that'd be something pretty easy that you could change. All right, so let's go back to the United States. You'll see that it updated back to the great states of America. And then the process here is pretty simple. You fill in data. After you submit the data, it goes to like this card view. I think we're gonna try to turn this into like a reusable component as well. So you'll see that all the data you entered there shows up in this card view. We don't persist that edit mode, so it kind of takes up a lot less space. This is where you would be in kind of this, I'm in edit mode, but this is where Andy's component would show up. It would automatically pop you in here. If you had selected a shipping method from the cart page, it would automatically just skip that step and step through to payment information. But since I didn't do that, that's there. And then the really neat thing is that we are focusing a lot more on desktop now. So I think for kind of a lot of interactions, we relied on this drawer for kind of everything. So like filter modals, everything's in a drawer. But this is the first time where we get something that kind of makes more use of the screen real estate. So now we have this modal. This has not been UX reviewed, so please, it might change a little bit. But let me get a thumbs up from the UX. Looks good. So now we get like this modal view in desktop. Go ahead and use as much real estate as you want. We switch to a kind of mobile view here. Zoom in a little bit more and edit. We go back to our drawer view. So kind of a responsive view now that's based on the viewport to kind of make as much use of that real estate as you can. And then obviously any edits you make in there will be updated and persisted back to that card view. So pretty simple. It's kind of, we're chugging along through this, and hopefully there's not too many stories and can move on to my account. But kind of a lot of neat stuff in here, trying to make things as reusable as possible. So if there's anything in kind of our very opinionated view that you don't like, you can easily just go in and reuse these components yourself and kind of build the view that is tailored to your storefront. So this is all UI. I could step through some code, but there's a PR up right now. Where?
Tommy, before you jump on that, I had a question, if that's okay.
Sure.
Excellent work, by the way. It's starting to really shape up. Really happy to see all the changes and new work. On the shipping address form that you first showed when they filled it out, I was just wondering if the state and city, country fields, etc., also are, people can type in it like an autocomplete, or is it only a drop select?
So that is actually dynamic. So if in Magento you have region options, it will show it as a dropdown. If there are no options available, it will be an input. But if are you talking about like this edge case where my region may not be in the dropdown?
No, I'm just talking about effort involved in scrolling to find a place rather than starting to type the characters and getting an autocomplete list.
Okay. Yeah, so kind of like a
like a search field almost.
Yeah. No, that does not exist presently, but I mean it's a pretty common pattern these days, and it would be I wouldn't say simple to implement, but I mean that's that's something that we could definitely explore, like a type ahead kind of experience.
It's feedback that came up during testing too. I mean, a lot of people use device saved information to fill out their addresses usually, but on the occasion that they're shipping to somebody else, particularly on mobile, this feedback has been expressed that it would be nice to have also something where they could shortlist what they were looking for. But this, and I had a couple of other questions. I'll just sync up with you after this call to talk to
you. I thought it was very risky to demo this before a UX review.
That's okay. I mean, it's looking good for the most part. It's just a few small small things, and it's really exciting to see the work come together. So thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know if anybody knew this, but you can type into a drop down. Like I can type new here and it jumped to New Hampshire. I mean, this is an autocomplete. You don't need to reinvent the wheel here. But no, that's very good feedback. We should definitely make it as easy as possible. I know another like stretch goal of this was also like it'd be cool if when I started typing my address that it could like auto-complete the whole thing. I think that's a pretty common thing, but that would require like a Google Maps API key or something like that. It would make it a lot more difficult to get things up and running. But I think we could definitely do like some neat features here to make it a lot easier to enter your address. But I think you nailed it. Like 99% of people are going to come in here and select something that they have saved in their browser. So hopefully it's more of an edge case than the common case. But yeah, open to any feedback that makes this more usable. All right. Anything else?
Yeah, I wanted to know how or if this was responsive.
Say
Not to
what
put you
now?
on the spot, it's okay if not. Well, I mean, do the classic responsive demo. Is there any difference in formatting as you resize or as you switch,
Like
switch
that?
form factors? Yeah. Or like, screen size or whatever.
Yeah, so we have I think it's like really pushing the limits here. Yeah, so 960 is kind of like our mobile size where it will, so I mean, it's just CSS media queries. Is that what you're asking? I don't understand the question. Sorry.
Essentially, yeah. See, any changes as the form factor changes, you've just done exactly the demo I wanted, and it looks great. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, and it's kind of hard to see here because the modal itself changes, but there's also there was a responsive thing where like first last name are the only two fields that kind of display side by side, and the rest are kind of flush here. Makes more sense on like a more compact mobile device. But those are also responsive. So that first form that you saw also would be spread out like this. This is actually the same form. So like I reuse this component in the initial entry and in the edit mode. So this is kind of like reusable components. Yay. So yeah, all completely responsive collapses. Should be relatively simple to like if you want to kind of compact things more, you can easily do that. But this is kind of what we got, and I think it looks pretty decent.
Don't sell yourself short, Tommy. It looks fantastic.
Fantastic. You're right.
All right. Any other questions for Tommy? Awesome. So I think that about wraps up the content for the team. Jordan, I know you gave me this update before, but I'd love to kick to Jordan right now for Community Corner. Any quick updates or any updates on kind of what's coming, what you're seeing on the community side?
Yeah, so basically, can you guys hear me or is my mic still muted? Okay. So basically, we don't really have any topics for the community corner, but there are some good issues in the community backlog. For example, push notifications. If you want to pick them up, please let me know. Would love to see some people working on these open issues. So that's about it for community corner. Since we're talking about checkouts, if you guys like, I could show you the checkout I've built for our next customer. Just like a quick sneak peek.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
All right, let me share. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Sure can.
Awesome. So I'm not gonna demo the whole site, but just the cart page. So if we were to add a product, there we go. We still have the site drawer from Venya. So this is our checkout. It's pretty close to the one Tommy showed.
So we've got some fields like a company field, a vet field. So if I just type something in here, it says total valid vet number for NL. And if I were to, let's say, clean this out, like now I'm gonna send to Germany, type in a vet number. Wait. Oh yeah, it says it's not valid for Germany, so the vet number is based on the shipping country. So that's pretty cool. I can go ahead.
And VAT
And
is
if you look to
taxes,
the,
right, Jordan?
yeah, taxes. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
That's taxes, yeah. And if you, actually, if you change to a country that doesn't have taxes, let's say Norwegian or Norway, save. Why is it so slow? You can see the taxes on the right are removed. And if I, let's go to, if I select a shipping method, this is a secure shipment. If you check out the right side, you should see, hey, shipping is free. And that is based on the settings in the Magento backend. We got some payment option here, both local, so bank overschrijving means bank transfer, and we've got Ideal, PayPal, etc. If I were to go to bank transfer, click on checkout, it would say, thanks for your order, yada, yada, yada. You got to pay this amount to this number. So that is a really quick overview of what I've built as a checkout for our current project.
Super
So yeah,
cool.
that's it. Not
It is
sure why
fantastic, man.
it's so slow.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah, and there's another thing which works pretty well. If I change the quantity, let's say I change it to 7, it gets updated automatically. So that's also working really nicely.
Is that optimistic, or is that data coming back from the backend?
Yeah, that's real data. So.
Oh wow, that's fast.
Let's go to network. Let's go to this one. And if I were to change it, you could see, and I'm actually doing another request on the cart, just because otherwise I needed to override something very deep in PWA Studio. So I'm doing one call too many, but that's fine for now. So if I go and add all right. So now it says shipping and billing address. If I edit this and I change to this, now it actually says like, yeah, this is your shipping address and this is your billing address. So yeah, that's basically the checkout I've built. So it looks a lot like the one from Venia, and this is all built on version 5.0.1. So I guess props to you guys for making good talents. Those really helped out.
Oh, cool. That's good to hear.
That's it.
Yeah, that's really great. And I think there's obviously some areas where we can lean on kind of your learnings and your what you've done with your checkout. Obviously, in the areas of like internationalization is an area where we should push ourselves to think about things and make sure we're considering things like VAT and the other things that you're already starting with from scratch. So we kind of know this, right? But it's good to see it and call it out for us and our team. Any questions for Jordan? Anyone else on the call that has anything that they'd like to discuss for a community corner? All right. The birds are super chatty, but
they sure are.
Okay. Well, hey, I think that's it. I think that's all that we have today. So everybody have a great weekend. Stay safe out there. The recording has stopped. Onwards and upwards. I've completely blanked on everything else. Don't forget to smash like and subscribe.
Tweet and subscribe.
And wash your hands.
All right. Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.